What is good, people, my peeps? Yes, it's another one. I'm waking up with this one. Revelation revealed the dark side of gang stalking online. In the criminal world, in the digital world, they've clashed, they've crashed, they've collided into each other. Just had this, you may call it revelation or epiphany. Once again, sleeping for maybe an hour, but waking up to this revelation, epiphany, thought. Technology. It almost came in like a whirlwind. And criminal activity. Sometimes when we think of criminal activity and technology, we think of white collar crimes, something in the digital field or something along the lines of banking or some kind of insurance fraud or, you know, when technology made it seem. But something else hit me with this gang stalking, cyberbullying. It's not just white collar crimes that technology has affected, right? We all know that via cyberbullying, gang stalking online, the dark side. We see that even night walkers or street walkers, they even went to the internet with backdoor, I don't know if that's the right name for it, but websites where men were starting to go online instead of driving down the street, right? To pick up ladies of the night. OnlyFans, those websites that try to look legit but really are engaging in criminal activity. You really don't see, well, I can't say that I actually seen a lot of gangs, you know, but coming through the 90s, you heard a lot about gang activity. What happened to all that gang activity? I mean, I'm not saying it's non-existent on the streets, but what if that has also gone online, right? It's gang stalkers that we think are just, or we are made to think that they are only government officials, COINTELPRO, police. But what if gang members are the gang stalkers for real? Well, part of them. But we haven't looked down that rabbit hole, have we? You know, I remember when the gangs took over in California, although I did not live there, it did make national news. It did circulate how grown men were brainwashed by the CIA to believe they actually owned a color. A color. That's like saying they own water or air, something they didn't even create. Yes, my black brothers, Bloods and Reds, Crips and Bloods, red and blue. They actually took ownership of these colors. But it was also orchestrated. Like I spoke about rats in a lab. Blocks, city blocks. Grown men thought that they owned city blocks, that they didn't even pour concrete, right? Mm. They didn't even pour concrete on those city blocks that they claim that they own now. But they fought and they killed over those city blocks. But what if these gangsters actually have now moved online? And instead of the city blocks that they fought over, that they were brainwashed, yeah, that they actually were brainwashed to believe they owned a color, they owned city blocks, their turf. Now they have moved online and they think that they have turf, if you will, cyber blocks, if you will. The same brainwashing of men who don't, in actuality, own anything. In actuality, have not produced anything, but cling on to the brainwashing of a government agency and trust and believe. This type of psychology, brainwashing games that they play with the mental can be passed down in epithetic genes, just like trauma from slavery. So you'll have grown men thinking like they thought when they owned colors, city blocks. How about I give you a hypothesis for you to contemplate? These same, well, maybe not the same, but their generations after them with the genes that have been passed down from to them from their parents. Hello, Lisa. Good morning. Passed down from their parents, thinking that they've left the city blocks and now they are on the internet blocks, the cyber streets, and have claimed the certain cyber streets. Would that be so wildly fetched of an idea? Well, it hit me this morning that that's exactly what's going on. You know, when the gangs took hold after they were so very well indoctrinated and brainwashed by the CIA to think that they were manly and powerful because of colors that the Most High created, and they were born into a realm. And city blocks, they just took ownership over and started fighting over. What if these men and their offspring are now online trying to hold down dominancy on cyber blocks? Yeah, I said it. Cyber blocks, cyber streets, and have actually, with their gene cells, the gene pool of the brainwashing that they got from their parents, their environment, you know, nature versus nurture. It's a such thing. It's a conversation to be had. It's been around for a long time. How do children develop? Is it by nature or nurture? Do you nurture your children and that helps them, or is it just natural? It's been a debate. I say it's both. Because if we think about epithetic genes that are passed down of trauma and situations, and if their fathers and their parents around them, which would, or people around them, their environment, which would be considered nature raising them, if they didn't get it exactly from a gang member being in their family, but they were in a gang infested environment, they got it from nature, their surroundings. That seed that was planted long ago in their parents' minds and in the community's minds that they were raised, that they actually owned city blocks and colors, and they fought and killed. I know it sounds, well, deranged for grown men to think this way, but it was orchestrated, and it will continue to be passed down because they think that they're thinking in their right mind, but they are not. They are the ones who are truly brainwashed, and it is in their genes, and they, unbeknownst to them, are silently passing that same gene down to their children. Yeah, the dark side of gang stalking online. I truly believe that we now have gang members online who have sliced and diced up their imaginary chalk lines or sand lines for individuals not to cross because they own this or that particular side of the internet. And see if you cross it or become too big or you haven't checked in the cyber world, in their mind. Remember, they're not thinking in their right mind, but they truly believe that they are. You haven't checked in these cyber streets, or you haven't shown respect in these cyber streets that they do not own. They don't even know how to write a program to even suggest that they own any of this intellectual property that people of their free will have had the free will also to log on to these cyber streets, not knowing that there is an invisible dragnet that men and women have created in their own delusional mind that they own this section or that section of the World Wide Web. And so, therefore, unbeknownst to you, you have crossed the invisible line of the open channels of communication, and you didn't check in, or you didn't show them enough respect, you see. And so now you are gang stalked from the dark side of the web. So literally, you hear people say, don't use the word gang stalking because it gives the wrong impression. It's community-based, organized crime. I say no. It just came to me. Just like prostitution has moved online, white collar crimes have moved online. What is stopping regular gangsters from moving online and having the same mindset as the environment that they grew up in, having not matured, evolved, or working on themselves, but truly thinking that everything is okay with them, with themselves, because they haven't did any work on themselves. So they roped off certain sections of the internet, which sounds so bizarre, I know. They roped off certain sections of the internet and proclaimed it in their own mind that this is their region. You see, this happens when people can be easily manipulated because the people they're manipulating have been stripped of power, privilege, and purpose. So that is how the CIA it was so easy for them to incept the minds of black men in California and Compton, to plant the seed for destruction in fertile grounds, in fertile grounds of the men's minds who are ready to grow something, anything, because they lack, though, power, privilege, purpose. And so with them having the lack of power, privilege, and purpose, and trust and believe, I told you, this gang stalking, if us targeted individuals are the rats that they're studying, did they not study the rats that are running behind us? Did they not consider the men of Compton rats to study because they knew they didn't have power, purpose, or privilege? Did they not know that of the inner cities of New York when the crack scene came online? They planted the drugs to break up these homes. Do you not think they knew there was lack of power and privilege and purpose? Of course they did. Of course they did. And you see, when these men who lack power, privilege, and purpose, well, they get themselves in a little trouble and wind up in institutions known as your prison system. They are surrounded with more men who lack power, privilege, and purpose. So it's more ingrained in them than ever. Because, see, they have to cling to someone, something, because we are social beings. So the brainwashing is stamped and it is approved by your government. Congratulations. You hear of the Monarch program where they try to change women into sexual, mind controlled beings. What about your gang members who think they are working within their free will? Trying to control something that they had no part in creating at all. But have roped off the cyber world. And maybe you've crossed into an invisible dragnet. And you have cyber gangsters gang stalking you now. It's becoming prevalent not only with gangsters who have moved online from off of the main streets onto the internet streets, because anyone and everyone can build a platform if they wanted to. But in gangsters' minds, you see, look, they believe they can control who can and when they can build a platform because of the delusion, because of the mental illness in their mind, seeded by the CIA. Do you see? But I've noticed that that illness has spread. Even on TikTok, I've seen people with large, very large platforms. And at first I was like, oh, this is interesting. You know, people go into stores and they get racially profiled, or, you know, something happens negative, they video it. And some big platform may get a hold of it and say, look what these people have done to this person, and show it. And you're shocked and you're like, oh, that's so wrong. And these people with large platforms. Yes, so we need to support. They make it seem so admirable and honorable, and you know we're gonna be the justice police now because the police system, they're corrupt. Well, what happens if you have a corrupt person who has a large, super large platform? With people who admire their work, and so they say, oh, look at this video. This person is so bad. Look what they did to this other person. And so you have a bias, you see, happening here. Because some people, well, let me not say some, a lot of people do not think for themselves. They are led. Uh, Let me repeat that. A lot of people do not think for themselves. They are led. hmm So now you have a person who is unaware, unaware that they are operating under mind control themselves, but think that they are brilliant in and of themselves, have a super large platform, and they send their biased, non thinking members out to address the situation. And these people think that they are handling justice and making something right. When in actuality, everyone under that umbrella is suffering from delusion. And so now we have platforms that are hurting people. You see, power doesn't corrupt, just like money is not the root to all evil. You see, those terms are said the wrong way. You see, the love of money is the root to all evil. And power doesn't corrupt, it is absolute power that corrupts. That is why, before social media, before all of this, where you and anybody had access to make themselves powerful, it was from above, the anointing. You were chosen. People are choosing themselves, building up platforms, and sending out minions, and believing that they are doing the right thing. And I've seen this so many times over. So while we have, as targeted individuals, concentrated on COINTELPRO, the government has already seeded their minions long ago in their offspring with the epithetic genes that are currently being seeded and passed down, unbeknownst to them, not realizing that they are under full mind control, and their offspring are under the same delusion. It is in the genes, planted by your government. So while we as targeted individuals say, oh, it's the government, I've always incorporated this being spiritual as well. It's the dark side I bring to you of the internet that is seeding this beast. It is the dark side of the internet that is growing this monster that we know as targeting, stalking. You see these big groups that you see people, they send videos to, and they think they're doing justice. And we do need justice. Probably wouldn't happen if our our checks and balances weren't so corrupt. And when I say checks and balances, I mean our systems that were put into play to help keep moral standards, you know, for a community and guidelines on track and just to provide safety in all. Those checks and balances never really were balanced. They were always all balanced. The scales never balanced out. So with that being said, now the dark side of the internet, I believe, is where this gang stalking is continuing to be fed. Continuing to be fed. I mean, if you don't believe me, just go on TikTok and see. Go on any social media platform with large followings, large platforms. You can see. What should we do, people? Let's help Jennifer out. Let's help Jane out. This police department, they didn't cover it. This clothing store kicked these people out. This is the address of the clothing store. What are we doing here? We're feeding the dark side of the web. That's what's going on. They're doxing. They're doxing. Could you imagine having millions of followers? For example, instead of having the scales of justice be balanced, right? We're we're coming out of Black History Month. Us as teens, do you remember your teenage years? For, for the most, I won't generalize everyone, but for the most, they were kind of fancy free. You got a chance to enjoy your teenage years, made tons of mistakes because that's part of growing and learning and understanding. And you know, sometimes you make mistakes because of your environment. You know, nurture versus nature. You know, how were you raised, or is it your environment you're around? It could be a combination of both. So we're leaving out of Black History Month, but at the top of Black History Month, there were some teenage white girls in Sephora being teenage girls. But due to their environment and how they were raised, they chose to paint on dark colored makeup and become do blackface. Now that's an insulting, you know, uh, act to, you know, display for grown-ups and children alike. Obviously, they knew that it was an insulting thing to do because as they were painting on the darker colored makeup that belonged or was in the section for African Americans, you know, black women, Israel, you know, they were painting on this makeup while making monkey sounds. Another white woman, they thought at the time, worked for Sephora and, you know, chastised the girls and told them to stop, told them not to do that anymore. But guess who was there? Their mother was in the store. Did not stop the girls. In fact, she walked off. All of it was caught on film. What do you think happened to that footage? let me tell you, it wound up on several major platforms who had millions of followers who talked about the situation, showing, the girls, these are teenage girls, showing their acting out, if you will, in the store wearing blackface at the start of Black History Month. Well, you know that it's going to strike a chord with a lot of black folks and some white people who use black content to further promote their platform. And so they did, and they used that content. And these people went out and found Sephora, the address, found the mother, knew who the young girls were. These are on several different platforms, my people, my peeps. These are teenage girls, although that was very rude, horrible, in fact, because of their upbringing, obviously, because the mother did not try to guide them in a different direction. Obviously, that's learned behavior. Nevertheless, these are teenage girls. Before the the boom of the internet, imagine your teenage years and stupid things you may have done. You being so blessed that the internet did not exist as it exists today. You see, they were not only doxxed by one platform with millions and thousands of followers, but several who did exactly what their founder, if you will, of the platform, not said in direct terms to go out and hunt down these people, somewhat indirect, but direct in the eyes of their followers. So now these girls are doxxed on several platforms, and most likely they will be stalked and gang stalked for life. For life. I hear grown men and women complain about being gang stalked, how it ruins their opportunities. So we have the dark side of online, where large platforms, whether they know it or not, whether they've even heard of gang stalking, but I guarantee they know of doxing, which just is another form of gang stalking, because you have people to dig into others' lives, backgrounds, history. And there are people that becomes their life. They think that they're doing something so honorable. But in actuality, these girls' lives are ruined for being teenage girls and having horrible guidance of parents, at least their mother, from what was shown on the video. Horrible guidance from the parents for their lives to be ruined. Could you imagine your life from silliness that you have done prior to the advent of the internet? Prior to that, your life ruined at 13, 14. These large platforms are giving people life sentences, but then justify themselves as being in their right minds. Power does not corrupt, but absolute power corrupts absolute. And you see, these platforms are giving people power that they may not have had ever in life, but they have it now. And they are destroying lives. You understand? Do I believe those young girls deserve to be chastised? Yes. Would I ever sick my platform or people who follow me onto them because of their actions and say, well, you know what to do, people? Or say, don't go on their platform. Don't look them up. Even by saying that, you still are giving the green light. The dark side of the internet is not, it's not just the government that has or is feeding this phenomenon known as gang stalking. You truly have gangs on here that have in their minds have blocks in a cyber world, and you are crossing into invisible blocks and lines and you didn't check in. So now their hounds come after you. You have people who have grown platforms and think that they are doing the right thing, but don't know the other side of the coin. When they flip it, Grand Rising, when they flip it and they say, yeah, look how horrible these teenage girls are for putting this doggone blackface on with makeup. Do you know? Just a half a million, not even a half a million followers, what that can do to a grown person's life. So just imagine what someone with 1 million followers, and not only just one platform. You had 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 million people. Now that 10 million people, a quarter of a million or maybe half a mil of die-hard investigators, because that's what they have turned into. Die-hard investigators. Finding the school, finding the dentist office, the hospital you was born, everything, and blasting it. A life sentence these girls got for clowning and being teenagers in Sephora. Because we have people that have power that is corrupting them. We have gang members online who are under the delusion, but think that they are in their right minds, but they are only playing out what the CIA planted a long time ago, whether it be passed down through their parents or their environment. It is in their genes. Empathetic genes. You see, they found that out through Black people with slavery, not just the trauma of it, but it carries on. That's why some people can get very upset, Black people, even if they watch a movie dealing with slavery, although they never experienced slavery as we know it then, because there is a form of slavery, but not getting whipped, chained, you know, and all the horrors that come with brutalized cattle slavery. But those experiences are trapped. They call it empathetic. You know, these scientists like to put a new name on it. I've said it, and many books have said it before. They came up with their new terminology. It's in your Akashi records. You know, I told you you're writing your books right now on top of books that have already been written and stored in your library. And see, sometimes it's like a earthquake happens. You know, you watch a movie dealing with slavery and it's like an earthquake and your library is shaking and that book falls off the shelf, and flies wide open, and now you're pissed off simply from watching a movie that triggers you. Just like white people have their empathetic genes, you know, the ones that have their conversations when they're amongst each other. And you know, that Negro might slip out their mouth, but it's with the hard R. You know, it might slip out in conversations, but nobody is shook. Nobody's offended amongst them, you know, they're amongst themselves. They're comfortable. But we'll get around a mixed group in a mixed conversation and say, oh no, I have no race, I don't have a racist bone in my body. It's locked in. So when I tell you the dark side of the internet contains gang members who have moved off the street and have made their invisible blocks and corners, and you cannot pass and you cannot elevate. You cannot move higher than this because this is my block. They are just operating under mind control and they don't even realize it. And the sad thing is, if they truly are suffering with demonic oppression, known as mental illness, then that's a double whammy. That's a double whammy. So I just believe that, my friends, is feeding gang stalking. It's feeding it and it's making it normal. And it's creating new books in the library of the youth, and they will pass those books down known as empathetic genes, unaware, unbeknownst to themselves. And you see their children will pass it down, and it'll become commonplace that gang stalking is this is normal. They'll look at us, the ones who tried to forewarn and tell about this type of system and program and where it first originated from, as the ones who never really had it together. You see, the truth sometimes is stranger than fiction. The truth is so shocking that some people truly cannot handle the truth. They truly cannot handle it. So, the dark side of the internet. We have the new boom. And it may not just be new. It may be something that just hit me today while I was lying here. But I say to you, if you are on the internet, you have a platform. Be bold and strong and stand in your power. Because you have to go outside, don't you? Well, coming on and logging in and stepping into this world wide web is another form of stepping outside. Be bold, head high, and walk in purpose.